All right, so we're live, ladies and gentlemen. ETM Hotep, welcome to the Sebaytdome open discussion. This is the Sesh Netcher YouTube channel. If you didn't already know, now you know. All right, so we're live, and ladies and gentlemen, let me mute myself. So yeah, that's a long delay, isn't it? But today is Wednesday, July 7th, 2021. So we are past the halfway mark of the year. We're in the beginning of the summertime. So I hope everyone is enjoying their summer. You know, last year, I think everybody's summer was put on hold and kind of ruined if anybody did have plans for the summer last year because of the pandemic. Those are things that um, we won't know that happens. Pandemics and outbreaks and things that happen. A lot of us don't know that these things will happen, but those who are trained and into the discipline of what do you call it? Infectious disease, epidemiology, and things like that, they are more aware of the potential of outbreaks. And so they, are way more prepared and way more knowledgeable about things like this occurring. So I've had an opportunity to speak to a couple of people who are in that field of study professionally. And, this pandemic, although it took a lot of people by surprise, it wasn't a surprise to the people who are in that field because and they gave me an analogy of the people, I forget what these people are called, but the people who study volcanoes and earthquakes, whatever, those people are called. Those people who do that for a living, they know the potential of earthquakes and volcano eruptions because they monitor, they watch, they know the signs, they can see certain things happen and patterns happening to be able to predict or at least anticipate earthquake, the whereabouts, whether volcano is gonna erupt in a certain time frame, you know, and they're not always accurate, but they give ballpark figures for these types of things, and this is what they do. So in the virology, viruses and pathogens around the world, there are people who are professionally deal with that and they see these things. And I know with the recent pandemic of SARS-CoV-2, um, it was basically predicted that there will be some kind of outbreak because of the buildup of these different viruses that were being monitored and seen. But anyway, I'm just saying all of that to say that we're in the summertime now, so I know a lot of people who are trying to make up for last summer and have fun or get a chance to do what they wanted to do last year this year. So I say that, and hopefully everybody will still remain safe, still be diligent, still make informed decisions about your safety, your health, because we are still in a pandemic. All right. The longer a virus, especially a virus, the longer a virus exists within a population of people, the more likely it's going to change and mutate. They, spawn variances and then mutations where it will um, avoid whatever solutions we may have for it, be it treatments, vaccines, whatever the case is. The longer the virus can thrive and survive, the more people like to say intelligent it will become, but that's not an accurate way to describe that. But it's the evolution of the virus. You know, the what do you call it? I mean, it evolves, but it's going to mutate and it's going to try to evade because it's trying to survive. But it's not like any one of them is going to all of a sudden change, but it's basically how things mutate, how living organisms mutate. All right. So here we are. So anyway, be careful, be mindful, and make informed decisions. All right. So it's not about whether you for the vaccine or even for the virus. I even ask people, some people are for the virus. Some people want to get the virus. I've heard that from a few people. As crazy as it sounds, but it's not if you for or against or anything like that. Just make informed decisions. Whether you are for or you are against, just have a solid, informed reason for it. And me personally, I have yet to meet a person who was a outright anti-vax and this and that had a valid reason. And I've been dealing with this for several months, like a year now, like straight up direct with people, and I have yet to encounter a person that has valid reasons and things to be anti, as anti as people will be. But anyway, so enough of that. So this is your brother Wujao, and welcome to the Sebaytdome again. This is open discussion, Sesh Netcher YouTube channel, and I'm not alone. So I have a couple of people on the panel that you all can introduce yourself, and I'm gonna post a link inside of the chat. So make sure that if you have anything to share, it's open discussion. Now, this is a welcome to the Sebaytdome situation, because last week, we'll get into that a little bit. So let me just pass the mic for now.
Hotep, my name is Tamika. Like, share, subscribe. Enjoy.
Hotep, Ren-E, Imiket. My name is Imiket, and welcome.
Okay. So that's the panel so far. So give me a second to get this link, because we're just going to start it off open style. But in the meantime, Imiket or Mika, do you have anything to bring up, share, questions, concerns, info?
Yeah, I had a question or part of a question that I've wanted to ask, mostly like those who are watching, because I do know that we have a lot of people that have been watching lately, and also those who participated here and there. I was just wondering about for those people in particular who haven't taken the study of the language. I was wondering what has stopped them from taking the language. And it's not like you should take the language, but for those who like interested in this kind of discussions, wondering like, have you thought about learning the language? If yes, what are your plans with it? If not, why not? That kind of stuff. So I'm just really interested in knowing about their interest in their language, in the language itself.
Okay, that's a good question. And maybe for however long that we're live, we can probably pop that question out periodically and see, who is in the middle of studying it, who's interested. We have classes, we could talk about that as well. And it's funny enough, though, we don't talk enough about the classes and everything. So I want to do a show about the class, about the learning process. We've done a few in the past already, so they're in the archive. But I think it's time for us to kind of revisit that and bring that up. The learning process, why even learn the language, and what does that look like? What does that feel like? What is that experience like to go through learning the language, and what are our expectations? Because there are people who say, well, I don't feel that we should learn the language. It's a dead language. Nobody's going to be talking that. It's not going to put money in my pocket or food on my table. Can't make a living out of it. And it's dead. Nobody's speaking it. So why learn it? So people get that extreme pessimistic, negative vibe going on when you mention Rani Kemet or the ancient Egyptian language. So, and we addressed that in the past, but maybe it's time to do that again.
Yeah, and I think I actually thought about the question coming from the last 2-3 episodes that we had, where because specifically the people on our chat, for the most part, I would say these are actually people who kind of take the right steps, perhaps because they engage in the conversation while learning slowly at the same time, and then you see some people taking that extra step and then starting to learn the language after that. But lately, we had we had one particular guest that came on a panel twice, and came to actually tell us some things about the ancient Egyptian culture in an authoritative manner. And then, but on those two occasions, whenever we brought the text, which is where everybody knows that that's where we get the information from. We don't get them, out of thin air. We get all the information from the text. When we brought the text, the person actually did admit that they can't read, that they don't read the text, but they've been taking years, studying under somebody, and also telling us about the culture. And this is why I actually thought about this, because there are some people who kind of tend to do things backwards. Let's just be honest, whereas like you will speak in an authoritative manner and tell people what the ancient Egyptians did and what they were, but you have no way of backing up what you say, by way of text, so that's why I actually thought about that, because that was a little strange. And you get that a lot lately, like everywhere you go when people talk about Kemet and who built what pyramid and all that, but you never really see people go into the text and tell you, we're saying this because look at this part, it says this and that right here.
Right. And our thing, that's been our thing from the day one and every day since, is, and I say it all the time, that you don't really know a culture intimately unless you go approach that culture, but by way of its language. And the reason why is because language is the DNA of culture. It records the psychology of the people, and if you want to get to know the culture, you have to go about it by way of its language. Language is the doorway, the key, the door, the welcoming room, whatever you want to call it. It is all that in a bag of chips when it comes to trying to study a culture that's not yours, that you weren't born into. It's for any foreign culture, dead or alive. You have to really get intimate and really know the culture. You have to do it by way of its language, and that's just that. Language is the verbal, representation of the psychology, thinking, worldview of a people. Its writing system is a visual representation of speech. And so, there's no way around it. And anyone or any group of people that don't take that into consideration, they are handicapped. And there's a lot of people who are handicapped, and it's not anything wrong per se about that, but people need to acknowledge it. And what I find disappointing, I would say, is people who are in that handicap situation did not take time to become intimate with the culture through its language, but yet have so much to say about the culture, to the point that they will get on social media and try to have the audacity to debate people about it and whatnot. And to me, that's just a waste of time that could be better spent in learning it and sharing and moving forward, expanding the knowledge about any given culture, than to try to debate about it, about anything out of ignorance. It basically becomes a debate of who's the most ignorant about something, rather than to try to expand the knowledge, the body of knowledge, which is what science is all about. So people really need to get into the language, and that's been our thing. So we're gonna have, we need to revisit the show, do another show about the language. Why learn it? Why? What are the expectations? And to address what people say about it. Been dealing with this for a decade now. I can say that, and I've heard people say many things about learning a dead language. very discouraging words about it or opinions about it, then some people are already, they see the importance of it. So we've addressed that before. We can do that again.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes actually, and the funny bit is that from the people that I've heard about talk or say that why I study a dead language, because it's one thing to say that I have no interest to study a dead language, and you don't see that person discussing, anything to do with that dead language. But in these instances, it's actually the people who want to discuss it and discuss it a lot. And then when that question comes in, it's like, well, it's a dead language. I'm not going to be spending time studying it, but they will be talking about it, not knowing that the information they are actually using is from the people who actually study the dead language.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of contradictory. You don't have time to learn the dead language, and you give the reasons because it's a dead language and blah, blah, blah. But yet you have the time to talk about the culture associated with said dead language. And, but all right. So I put the link inside the chat. So as we've been doing lately, we've been having an open discussion, pass the link out. Any and everyone is welcome to join the panel. We don't even go over any do's and don'ts because of our position and stance has been very, very consistent over here on this channel and what we do, what we're about, and things like that. And we don't. There's certain things that we just do not tolerate, and I don't tolerate. And as a person who can moderate these sessions, I am definitely trigger happy. I will get my moderation on. But I haven't had a need to do that, and that's very, very good. That's how it should be, and so on. So I'm not even gonna go into it. I don't have any need to go into all of that stuff. All right. So, but ETM Hotep again, welcome, and appreciate anybody who's tuned in. This open discussion. So we didn't have. I don't have anything prepared. Normally on Wednesday we have Divine Words Wednesdays where we give a presentation, and to do a presentation to share information to kind of go in on a specific topic that takes preparation. And lately, I could just speak for myself. I haven't had time to prep anything new at least. But there's things that we've covered in the past that we could probably revisit. And so this is why I ask questions of the chat and ask for suggestions, things that other people may be reading, come across, or heard that you would like for us to address and it doesn't have to be wrong information, because a lot of people will inbox me and want me to address something they feel is just pseudo or lies and things like that. But it doesn't have to be that. It could be good information. It could be accurate, correct information that you want us to expound on, because we may have more information on it or on that subject. So it's not always about busting people up or whatever the case is. All right. And I don't want to give that vibe when I ask for people to make suggestions. A lot of the suggestions I get is on the bus up type of thing, bust it up, can you address this? Can you address that and whatnot? Which is fine, but let's balance it out. All right, let's get some good stuff and just expound, all of that good stuff. All right. So let me just answer a question. Sutek. So Hotep, to the brother Sutek, he asked me, was I fully vaccinated? And the answer is no, I'm not. But mainly it's because I was infected by the virus. Didn't want to be. Did my best the whole year. 2020, I was good the whole year. I was doing very good, very careful, very mindful. And the whole thing, January this year, I was infected by people who weren't as careful as me, more reckless and everything. And that's all it takes. And it's like driving a car. If you could have the best driving skills on the road, you could be Mario Andretti on the streets and on the road, or whatever the case is. I don't even know who the popular car driver is now. But anyway, But it's not about your skills. It's about your awareness of being able to drive defensively, because not everybody can drive. Not everybody can drive safely or drive good. So you have to be aware and know how to maneuver based on other people's things. So that's how this is. You could be careful as you want, but other people can be reckless. And then you get caught slipping one time, that one time. And I'm speaking for myself and about myself. That's all it took. Contracted the virus. And fortunately, it was my case, my infection was considered mild. I had a few of the symptoms. I lost sense of taste and smell for a shorter period than most people who go through that, but I did, and felt a little achy on the first day. That's how I knew, because I'm not a person. It's been a long time. I haven't been sick in a very long time, very very long time, or any of that, and I can tell like something was going on. I was like, wait a minute, but it was a mild. I had a mild. Fortunately, I had a mild case, and so anyway, I'm saying that to say that people ask me, have I been vaccinated? So by me being infected, my body built up antibodies. My body fought it off and built up antibodies. My immune system responded and did what it's supposed to do and everything. So that's kind of made me hesitant as far as becoming vaccinated. And plus, at the time in January, people who were infected and fighting it off, they were actually back then recommending that people who were infected to wait to be vaccinated. Your body's going through a natural infection or building up a natural immunity to it, regardless of it, whether it being temporary or whatever the case is. So, all right. But anyway, I just wanted to answer that. And maybe my situation fits a lot of other people, and I know that. But maybe some of you all are listening. Maybe you were infected and recovered and whatnot. All right, so that's that. But I want to say, even though I was fortunate to have a mild case, I wouldn't want anybody to get infected. It's not, you don't want to mess with that. And what's strange is that people are fearful of the vaccine and give a reason that the vaccine is new, and people don't know the long-term effects of the vaccine. So therefore, they don't want the vaccine. But I don't hear those same people saying the same thing about the virus. The virus is also new. That's why they call it novel. And they don't know the long-term effects of being infected by it. But it's just weird to me that I hear people will only cherry pick and say, well, I don't want the vaccine because we don't know the long-term effects. It hasn't been out long enough. Not enough data. I'm like, well, you do understand that the virus is new too, just as new. The virus got a few months, roughly a year. The virus is a year older than the vaccine. And you want to talk about not knowing, the effects of something. So it's just some backwards logic going on. Real crazy. All right, but we're not here to talk about the vaccine or the virus and things like that, although we could maybe do that another time. All right, so what are we getting into? I put the link in the chat, by the way. Let me see. Let me check on the panel. Anybody coming to the panel? I don't know what it is. Do we intimidate people or something?
Yeah, it's just the sisters holding it down. Everybody else is scared.
All right, let's talk about what's today, Wednesday? Was it Friday? Where we had that discussion and somebody brought up the Turin Papers, the brother.
Two.
That was Friday. All right, well, let's summarize that. Let's revisit that. So Mika, go for it. They said I'd be throwing people out there.
Oh, somebody's coming. Good.
She said, not me. No. I'm saying summarize that discussion. Friday, the brother came in and the topic was raised about the Netcheru being real people. And somehow, conversation talking about who built the pyramids too, or something like that. But the brother came in and is of the belief that the Netcheru are real people, and it's okay for people to have beliefs. Like that's a very human thing to do and everything like that. A lot of people believe what they believe. That's it. And during the conversation, I told the brother in the middle of it that I can respect the belief. But we have to understand logic. And so last week, that show was a lesson in logic, in inconsistent logic, really. As a matter of fact, I'll probably retitle the show. I need to put that title up for the show so people can have a reference to go back to. Now, the show, we were live for 6 hours. So maybe I can put in the description some timestamps of the different subjects that we kind of covered in those 6 hours. Cause I know me, I'm not going to watch a 6-hour video. I'm just not going to do it. So I don't expect people to watch the whole video, but it's a very valuable, good lesson in inconsistent logic. It's a demonstration of inconsistent logic and the misuse of logical fallacies. The brother was saying I committed straw man and stuff like that. And it's clear that there's a misunderstanding of what those things are, what a straw man logical fallacy is. And I think we did a show on that too, as well. We got a show for about everything.
Pretty much, yeah.
But yeah, you about to say something?
Oh no, I was just saying, yeah, we pretty much have done shows about just about everything in the archives.
Yeah. So, well, let's just summarize. So I'm going to summarize. I'm going to summarize the logic. Okay, here's the inconsistency in logic, and I recommend people to watch the show. Like I said, it's 6 hours, so I'm not asking you to watch all 6 hours, but it would be great if you did. But just scrub through the video and find the part where the brother Ahati Ma'at, and I say his name with respect and everything, where he came on the show and we had a conversation. And that's where you could pick up and watch the video from. And so here's the logic that was laid out or that everybody could see. And I don't want people to take my word for it. So that's what I'm saying. Just watch the show, listen to what the brother says yourself. But the basic summary is that the brother believes that the Netcheru were real people because they're listed by name on a papyrus that we know today as the Turin papyrus, the Turin's King's List. And the example that was given, a focus was placed on Ma'at. Ma'at is listed as a king of Egypt, ancient Egypt, and ruled for 700 years. And also in the same papyrus, although we didn't talk about it, but you look before Ma'at or whatever, you'll see Jehudi mentioned as a king ruling for 7,000 years, 7,000 plus or whatever. And so the bottom line is that because they're mentioned or written on a papyrus by name and ruling that many years, it must be true. And therefore, they must be real. And that's the logic.
Oh, hold on 1 second. Ghana, could you mute your mic? Your mic is open, has some background noise.
Okay, there we go.
Dua.
So that's the basic logic, or that's the stance the brother has. Now, so here's the logic of it. This is how you kind of work through it. Okay, so because a name is found on papyrus and 700-year rule is attributed to that person, it must be true. All right. Now, it's nothing else. Nothing else indicates that. Oh, let me add to that. Because in the same papyrus, there are other names mentioned where people that we do know are real people. For example, Ramses. Ramses was an actual literal king of ancient Egypt. There were actually several Ramses, but Ramses nonetheless. Okay. So Ramses is mentioned in this king's list. So because Ramses is real and we know it, and no one argues that because we have his body. If people doubt it, we can go straight over and see his body. But people probably say, it's not really him. But regardless, no one argues whether Ramses existed and was real. Everybody agrees with that. So because Ramses is real, and we know that, and he's mentioned in the king's list, then everybody mentioned must be also real. And that's the conclusion. Ma'at is mentioned there, 700-year rule. Jehudi's mentioned, 7,000 plus year rule, et cetera, et cetera. Geb, Heru, Usir, and so on and so forth. They must be real because Ramses is real, and they're mentioned in this king's list. So that's the outline of the stance. So now, if we take that logic and we move from that papyrus and we go over to another document called Bereshit, written in Hebrew or whatever the case is, found in today's Bible, aka the book of Genesis. Okay, the book of the beginnings, Genesis, something starts. Okay, if we take that same logic and we look at we open the Bible, the first book of the Bible is Bereshit or Genesis. We'll see names of people mentioned: Adam, Eve, Cain, Abel, and others. And so in that conversation, I brought up Methuselah because I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Methuselah is listed as the longest living one, at least in terms of numbers. I could be wrong, but I know he lived a long time, not 900 plus years. Adam lived a long time. So with that logic, because Methuselah is mentioned and the amount of years he lived is mentioned in a book that we know contains a few people who we do know is real, that are real later on. We don't know about anybody, the Old Testament and all that kind of stuff, but there are people in the book that scholars say are actual real people, were actual real people. So we've met that qualification. Here we have a text that mentions real people that scholars are in agreement on. So just like the Egyptian text, Ramses exists, scholars agree on that. So now we've met that criteria. So now Methuselah is over 900 some odd years. So if I can believe that Ma'at is real and ruled for 700 years, then I should apply the same logic and believe that not only Methuselah lived over 900 years, but also that all of my sisters, my beautiful sisters and women out there in the world, female human beings, I also must believe that all female human beings started from the rib of a man. Why? Because the book says so. And the book mentions a real person later on down the line. So I have to take that real. And Adam lived how he lived. I have to take the fact that snakes or serpents can talk. I also have to take that women or a human being can turn into a pillar of salt by looking at a city. I have to also take that, a man can be swallowed by a big fish, chill out for a little bit, a weekend, take a weekend vacay inside the belly of a fish, and then come on home on the island, be spat out on the island. I have to believe all of that and all the other stuff. That, humans can build a tower, to Mars and then get it crushed and snap of a finger, everybody's, language change, all of that stuff. And so anyway, that's what I would have to be consistent in my logic. I would have to take that in. So that's the problem. And so in the conversation, when I brought that up, the brother rejected the biblical stories as fantasy. But yet it's the same exact thing going on as the text that he was talking about, the Turin Papyrus or the King's List. But the King's List is not rejected as fantasy, but the biblical narrative of the book of Genesis is. And there's no rationale for the difference between the two. And so you got to listen to the show. The brother brought up, well, we don't know who the author is of the Bible. I was like, well, who wrote the Turin King's List? And then some other people's names were mentioned that had nothing to do with the King's List, Ptahotep and so on and so forth, whatever the case is. So that couldn't be it. So anyway, so the Bible was rejected. And so I said, okay, fine. The Bible was rejected. That comparison may be a little too much for you to handle. So then I said, all right, well, let's stay in Kemet. So I did the same thing between the Turin Papyrus, the King's List, and applied the same logic to another Egyptian text. This particular text is called the Book of Knowing the Transformations of Ra and Overthrowing Apep. All right. That is one of the Egyptians' creation stories. All right. Because he didn't like the biblical creation story. And when I brought that up, that's fantasy. So I'm saying, okay, well, let's just stay in Egypt. So I brought it up and I used the same criteria. Okay. It's an Egyptian text. It's authentic. It's written by the people of Egypt and so on and so forth. But in it, it says that human beings come from, or the people, the Remich, comes from the tears of a god. A god cries, and then human beings are the result of those tears. The Remech, coming from the word Remi, which means to tear or to cry. Okay? Now, so if we're to take Ma'at literally as a king of ancient Egypt ruling 700 years and take all that literally, why not take the human beings come from the tears of a god literally? So you're stuck with a problem again. And so if one is a metaphor and the other one is not, any person that feels that way is going to have to explain what criteria are they using to determine which one's a metaphor and which one's not. And I asked all these questions that night. So go back and listen to it. And the response I got was, in terms of human beings not coming from tears, was that the brother said he knows science and that's not how it works. And so I'm like, well, wait a minute. Let's apply that logic back onto your stance. Well, I know human beings don't live 700 years. So therefore, Ma'at cannot have ruled for 700 years and that be taken literally. So anyway, that was just a constant thing of the session. And I was doing it for the purpose of demonstrating what inconsistent logic looks like. And so I hope everyone who watched it or will watch it walked away with that much. It wasn't a debate or anything like that. It was a discussion, but I just went on and walked through that to show what inconsistent logic looks like. All right, because I wasn't even going to really address it because the brother can't read the language, and bring up the Turin Papyrus, the King's List. I mean, that's so old. Like so many people talk about that. And what's very interesting is that the brother recommended that we use a website to discuss it. Okay, pharaoh.se. If y'all not familiar with it, now you are. Pharaoh.se. And that's a very good website. They're very thorough in what they have on the website. And we've been using that and know about it for like 10 years now. I mean, a very long time, I should say. And so I was already familiar with the website and everything. And what's interesting is that on the website where the King's List is, the website itself tells you that it's not literal. They even use the word mythological on the website. So I just found that interesting. And these are little finer things that people, tend to overlook or whatever the case is. Yeah, so anyway, that's just a summary. I'm just summing it up. So if anybody wants, had a question, saw it, had a question, further question, or whatever case is, it's open. The link is in the chat. But anybody on the panel care to chime in?
Yeah, that was really one of the reasons why I asked what I asked, because remember twice, like especially on that one, when you brought the facsimile for everybody to read, the brother rejected it. And then he wanted to, his preference was to actually read the translation, where there was the translation and all that stuff. And this is what we always say, like, when you don't take the time to learn the language, you're always going to be handicapped. And then obviously when you mix that with just not being logical, you just have this, it's like a whole cocktail of just pseudoism. So not reading the language and then not understanding logic just brings the worst out of this kind of in this kind of study. You do not, those are two things you do not want to be lacking. And then discuss Sesh Netcher, or just about anything else, like, like any culture, you have to actually just basically anything that you're studying or anything that you do in life, you need logic. But then when you come to studying something, or taking time to, spend time, reading something a lot and discussing it, you need to be proficient in whatever it is, whether it's a basketball, whether it's music, and this goes for the language. You need to be adept at it. So when those two things were lacking for the brother, it was just a cocktail of pseudoism.
Yeah.
But yeah, see, we have Sen Ghana. I think he probably, I don't know if you can speak right now.
Guess not. Maybe I don't know. So yeah. All right. Well, now in addition to that, somebody inboxed me and let me know that the brother that we're talking about, and again, I'm saying his name out of respect, Ahati Ma'at. He did a video. I guess I haven't seen it, but he did a video. Somebody inboxed me, a brother inboxed me and told me that he did a video addressing our conversation, and I haven't watched it. I really don't have. I didn't like run to go watch it or anything like that, because like I said that night, that I can respect somebody's belief. If anyone wants to believe that a king ruled for 700 years or 7,000 years, I mean, that's cool. That's cool. It's one of those situations, to each his own. It becomes an issue when you try to advocate that, and teach it and stuff like that. That's, and if it comes across my eyes or whatever, then I'm going to speak up and say something, because there's absolutely no evidence whatsoever for the truthfulness or the literalness of that whatsoever. And the only thing that a person can say is it's true because it's written. Do you know how dangerous that is? It's true because it's written. That's crazy. And that's just very, very poor discernment skills, to walk away like that. And that breeds what we see in these belief systems and things. So that's just, but at the same time, the way that our society is, I can respect it because people have a right to believe what they want to believe, as long as it doesn't do harm to you and yours and all this and that. So it's okay. So I don't have to. So that's why I don't debate that at all. I'm not going to debate somebody who believes that kings ruled for 700 years, lived 700 years, ruled 700 years, lived 7,000 years, ruled 7,000 years. No, I'm not doing that. That's for the playground. That's for people on the monkey bars and merry-go-round and stuff. That's for children. I'm not debating that. That's like, imagine adults debating about Pinocchio being real and Santa Claus and stuff like that. We think they're crazy. So Ujao is not doing that. There's nothing there. There's nothing left to talk about on that. All right. But I do want to go. So does anybody have anything to say or anything to add? Because I do want to share something related to that.
Yeah, just real quick. Since you said we're gonna at some point we're gonna discuss about the classes and whatnot. I think just as a reminder, a good thing would be something that we focus on a lot with with the curriculum, which would be like competency-based education. Because I was just thinking like sometimes somebody can study too much of the wrong things as opposed to studying a bit of the right things and showing proficiency. So some people would like somebody would say, I've spent 5 years studying this or learning under so and so, but then they still be as wrong as two left. But so like I think it would be good to kind of talk about what we focus on a lot during those. Just a reminder about the competency-based education, where it's not about the amount of time that you spend studying something, but proficiency, showing your skills about it, which is something we focus on a lot.
Okay. Well, I would just want to yeah. So the language is important for people to learn and everything. So I just want to share my screen. I just want to show something. But if anybody else has anything to say real quick, do so. Give me a second to pull this up.
Okay, dead silence. So while you do that, let's we can it's actually a little bit late, but we'd like to say Heru Mesut Nefer to Saint Jehudima Art, who had a birthday recently. Oh yeah, and since I'm saying that, that means happy birthday in Sesh Netcher. I should actually put it in a chat. So that would be Heru Mesut Nefer.
Yes, indeed. Heru Mesut Nefer. That's to Jehudi Ma'at. Who else? I know Jehudi Ma'at had a birthday recently. Okay, so let me share this. All right, so I'm gonna share my screen. So okay, now we've gone over this before. That's why this is on the screen the way it is, because I've gone over this before a few times. All right, man, as far back as maybe 2015, I think. But so what I'm showing here, because we deal with the language and everything, so I gotta put the language on display. And so what we're looking at here on the screen, let me lock it to me, make sure everybody can see it. All right, so here it is. All right. So what you're looking at is a clip. Matter of fact, let me just show you the papyrus. Okay, so this is a portion of the papyrus that's now called Papyrus Bremner Rhine. Okay, this is actually the fifth sheet of it, or the fifth plate number 5. It's found in the British Museum, and the catalog number is 10188. So that's what you see on the screen. So if you're not familiar with how museums catalog things, if you see these kinds of numbers, that's what they are. You see these numbers next to the name or whatever the case is. You'll usually see a catalog number, a sheet number, plate number, artifact, however they catalog it. Okay. But that's what this is. So this is a facsimile of it. Now, previously when I brought it up years ago, I was pointing out how many times the scarab beetle is seen. So I showed the formal glyph of the scarab beetle and drew lines to where you see it in what we call simplified Sesh Netcher, what others will call hieratic. So this entire text is written in hieratic. We call this simplified Sesh Netcher. So I was highlighting in yellow circles instances on this line where you see the scarab beetle, because in the text, there's a mention of Kepper, the word Kepper, in different forms all throughout the text, especially in the beginning. And so Kepper is a word that generally means manifestation, coming into being, changing, and evolution. That's like the semantic scope of that word as a verb. It means, that's the semantic scope. So it has different nuances and variations of it. And so for it to be written so much and so close together is very telling. And so when I created this slide, I was demonstrating that, showing people where you see the word Kepper and how often you see it. And it's not just here. I just highlighted in this line, but you see it all over the place. We see it again here, Kepper, Kepperu. So you'll see it in many places. But this is the book called The Book of Knowing the Transformations of Ra and Overthrowing of Apep, the same book that I mentioned last week during the show with the brother. Okay. So this is a blow up of certain sections of what you see over here. Matter of fact, this line right here, this is where it starts. Where my arrow, let me put my other trusty arrow on here. So right here is where this particular book starts. Not a book in the sense that we have with a spine and pages, but this is where the text starts here, right here where this blue arrow is. You see the word Majat Net. Okay. It starts off with Majat Net, and you'll be able to see that right over here. So I blew it up so everybody can see it, and then transcribed it into the formal glyphs, so that people can have a better view of what these glyphs are. Okay, so we have Majat. You see Majat, Net. We have Rek. And then we have Keperu. Then we have Nu, Ra, and then Saker, Apep at the end. Okay, so that's the very first line. Majat, Net, Rek, Keperu, Nu, Ra, Saker, Apep. Okay, and what does that mean? And I have the translation over here. Majat is the word for book of knowing. So the book of knowing, we have Majat, Net, Rek. And people hear the word Rek. You should be familiar with the word Rek. It means to know or learning process. The book of knowing, and then we say Keperu, the transformations, Nu, Ra, of Ra, the transformations of Ra. Saker means to overthrow, or to what do you call it? Saker is when somebody is beaten and falls. Say again?
To defeat?
Yeah, I mean, it's a result of being defeated. So it's when you fall or to defeat and stuff like that. Yeah. So Saker is to cause to be down. And so it's a word that means to defeat, or we say overthrow. So it's the book of overthrowing, and then we have Apep.
Quick question.
Apep here. Go ahead.
So would that be hold on, I went black. Okay. So would that be like a causative for care?
Yeah. So what
to be
care?
under, like to be under or something like that. So it'll be to cause to be under.
Right.
Okay.
That's what I was saying. So to be under, the cause to be under is like our way of idiomatically saying to overthrow, to put under your feet. That whole saying, that semantics tax. that we still use today. You put your enemies under something, under your feet, you know. Um, so this is the beginning of the book. And so that's how the book introduces itself. It tells you that it's a book or it's a papyrus. Majat doesn't mean book to the ancient Egyptians because they didn't have book in the equivalency of what we have today. So Majat is a word for papyrus scroll. So the scroll, but we say book. We know what everyone means. So this is the book of knowing the transformations of Ra and overthrowing Apep. All right. Now, when you read the whole book, you'll walk away with a little different things that I'm not going to have time to go into tonight. This is a highly recommended book by me. I recommend it. I recommend people to read this. If you ever want to know about ancient Egyptian worldview, this is a must read. And if you can't read the language, that's fine. Get the English translation, but read it. All right. This is a good thing to read and to understand. Is must have. And every culture around the planet has a beginning story, a cosmological story, a creation story, a cosmogonical story, whatever the case is. Every culture around the planet, groups of people, they have these beginning stories. And in their beginning stories, it lays the foundation for their worldview because they explain their ontology, how they perceive the categorizations of existence itself. And this is a very interesting thing. So, I recommend people to read this to tap into the Egyptian worldview. So anyway, let's just keep going real quick. So when we move further, we see Jed F. See Jed here. And you can see the cobra, it's still outlined. You can see the hand still there. So we have Jed Medew. Then we have the word Neb and Nebercher. And Nebercher, well, we'll get back to that just to finish. Then we have so we have Jed Medew. We have again Jed F here again. Then we have Imket. This is the owl. Imket. You see the branch here. Imket. And then we have Kepper. You see the scarab beetle that I had outlined. Notice. See this glyph here. Let me get my arrow here. I'm trying to give a little brief lesson on hieratic a bit, but see this glyph here is the beetle. It's the same as this glyph here, the beetle. Up here is Keperu. Up here, it's not Keperu, it's Keper F. A little cut off right there, but it's Keper F. All right, just so you'll know where we are in the text. But I have the formal glyphs underneath of it right here, so you can follow along that way. So we have Jed Medew, Nebuchadnezzar, Jed F. Then we have Imchet Keper F. And what that's saying is Jed Medew, words spoken. And it's going to go into who's speaking. So it's Nebuchadnezzar who is the one speaking. Then it says, he says, Jed F. And so he says, Imket, after. This is the word for after, to follow after. And this actually ties into the name of Imiket. Imiket, Ket, to come after. So Imiket or Imket. And then Keper F. So he came into existence. Remember, Keper, to manifest, to come into existence, to come into being, after he came into being. So these are words spoken after he came into being or manifested. So who's talking here? This whole entire monologue is being spoken by Nebuchadnezzar, this deity right here. Neb-Edger. Now, what does the Nebuchadnezzar mean? Nebuchadnezzar breaks down as Neb, meaning owner, possessor. And most people translate it as Lord. Okay, because that's what Lord means. Then is a preposition with respect to, related to, and so on. And then Jur is the word for limit. to limit something, to place a limiter around something, or even the word definition, because a definition is a limiter. When you define something, you are limiting it. So this is the Lord of the limit, or the Lord or the owner or possessor with respect to the limit. That's what the word Nebuchadnezzar means. And it's a deity. And so people collectively translate that name or that deity as the supreme being. Because if you own all of the limits, that means you own all of the definitions. And if you own all of the definitions, you own how something is defined is its existence. So you're the master or owner of things in existence, of everything in existence. And so they will translate that as the supreme being. You're the master, you're the owner of everything. That's it. No other beings is outstretching that, because you're the supreme. Okay, so anyway, that's where you get it. And then so he speaks. So he says, Jedef, so says he. He speaks. And then after he manifested, okay, that he came into existence. All right, so I'm just kind of breaking this down a little bit. So here's what he says. So he says, Inek, which means I. It's a first person pronoun for I or I'm. Inek. So Inek Pu, and you see it here, Pu, the word Pu right here in the hieratic. Inek Pu, which means I am this. And now we don't talk like that in English, but in literally in the language, it would be I am this. Inek Pu, I am this. Or this I am this. But we don't talk like that in English. So we would just simply say I am. And so it says, now we have the scarab beetle. You see this here? Scarab. You see it right here? Scarab. You see it right here? Scarab. Same thing.
Two.
You had a question? Somebody was saying something?
Oh, no, I just said two.
Okay. So we have Kepper here. So he's saying, I am Kepper. But people think that, okay, Nebuchadnezzar is saying, I am Kepper. No, it's what the word Kepper means. I am the one who came into being. Kepper came into being or manifest. I'm the one who manifested or came into being M as. See M, which is the owl here. And you see the owl right here. And remember when I say you say Mket? See the owl right here? You see this glyph right here? That's the owl. You see the same glyph right here? That's the owl. As Keperi. So we have Inukpu Keper M Keperi, or Kepri, as people say. Okay, so I am this, or I am who came into being as the creator. All right, now this is different, a lot different than the biblical narrative of the beginnings. All right, it paints a little different picture. All right, so let's continue though. So let me grab my trusty arrow and bring it over here. All right, so this is how it continues. Put my arrow over here. All right. Then we have another Keper Ini. So we have Keper Ini. So you see the scarab? You see the scarab coming up again? But this is Keper Ini right here. So you just see the open mouth, the water ripple, and the pronoun here, Keper Ini. So when I came, so this is the past tense, if anybody, I'm not trying to give a whole lesson on language or the grammar, but Keper Ini is a past tense. It's showing something that is performed already. Keper Ini. When I came into existence, and then Keper or Keperu, Keperu came into existence itself. So what this is saying is that when I came into existence came into existence. And see, people, when I first said this years ago, and I say this all the time, and people look at me with a little side face a bit, when I always say that existence needs existence in order to exist. Now that sounds like a little play on words or mumbo jumbo, really, but it's the absolute how this stuff is described. And if you understand it, it will make sense. Existence needs existence in order to exist. And if that sounds a little crazy or far-fetched or, you know, um, a little strange, trust me that I can break it down at any given time. You just ask me. All right. I'm not gonna have time to do it tonight. Maybe I will. All right. But I can show you what that means, what that actually means. It's not something spooky at all. But that's what it's saying. So when I came into existence, existence itself came into being. Then we see the scarab beetle here. See scarab, scarab again. Got the owl right here. Got the branch, scarab again. So I'm just pointing these glyphs out to you. So then we have Keper Keperu, Neb Mket Keperi. And what that's saying that Neb is the word for all. So all things came into existence after, we see that word Mket again, after I came into existence. So this is like a reinforcement of these statements. These statements complement each other and reinforce that I came into existence. First of all, this Nebuchadnezzar came into being and then started speaking after he came into being. And then he said that he came into being. When he came into being, existence itself came into being, and then all things came into existence after he came into existence. So that's two ways of saying the same thing. So all these statements are basically reinforcing one another. All right. And so this is the opening of this particular book. And so what I want to say is that this is the same book that I was talking about to the brother when I was mentioning the book of knowing the transformations of Ra and overthrowing of a pep. All right. So just kind of want to deal with that. I'm not going to go over, anymore, because the book is a very, very, it's a book that calls for a lot of discussion. Unless you want to do the microwave thing, surface thing, and spook it all out and just, toss it around, then hey, whatever floats your boat, you can do that too. But if this book is discussed, it will take it's a very longer discussion to have about this book. But anyway, just to kind of summarize, the book goes on to the point that I was making with the brother, is that so this deity, Nebuchadnezzar, he comes into being and he finds himself alone. All right. And to resolve that loneliness or whatever, he creates a second and a third. And just a quick question, who do you think that second and third is? Anybody know? Nope. Man, it's kind of quiet. Let me look at the panel. Anybody? No one want to take a stab at that? Who do you think? Okay, so I'm just painting the picture. So you have this deity, he comes into existence, and then with him, every existence itself comes into existence. But he's lonely, right? So okay, there you go.
Shu.
Okay, there you go. All right. See, that was easy.
Shu and Tefnut.
Yep, exactly. Shu and Tefnut.
Mhm.
Okay, so this particular text, like I said, I always recommend from day one, ever since I started teaching, ever since I started, sharing, I always tell people that you become familiar with this. Even if you can't read the language or deal with the language or dig deep into it, at least become familiar with it, because this is a critical piece of, or a tool to let you understand the quote unquote religious text and all the stuff, spooky stuff that people like to talk about. It's anchored right here. And if you can understand this and remove the spooky and unlock and understand the difference between figurative and literal stuff and all this other kind of things, man, you're in the game. You're in the game. You're in the game. All right. So I would love to have a nice roundtable discussion about people who are at that level. But man, every time I tried in the past, spooky creeps in because people are not ready. It's like, man, just like people believing that, kings ruled 900 years, 7,000 years, 700 years and stuff like that, taking that stuff literally. I'm like, nah, I can't have a conversation with you about this stuff. That's you're gonna tell me people really had scarab heads and canine heads and stuff like that. People really flew. People had wings and stuff. Nah, I'm not entertaining that.
That is just fun. Good night, everybody.
Hey, good night. I mean, yeah.
I mean, for me, is not yet. It's 11. It's 20 past. It's 11 hour and 40 minutes right now. PM.
Oh, in the AM?
PM.
Oh, PM. Oh, okay.
PM yet. You showing the description. Good night, everybody. First in the first place, in the panel and watching. Good night, everybody. Man, it seemed to me that I'm finding a pattern in the beginning of all the books related to the beginning of existence, cosmology or cosmogony or things of that nature. And it looks like we are being introduced to some principles of reality, maybe, I don't know, because although the first nature, the first Interu or Netcher is changing. Sometimes Ra, sometimes Ptah. I mean, sometimes it kinds of change, but we see at least two patterns. The first is that you said the existence only came to be from existence, and the movement is the other, is kind of a second principle of existence. I don't know if it's a mistake or not. Maybe it looks to me that it's a kind of a rule of logic rules, if I may say.
Yeah. See, this is, and I'm telling you, this is a very important text. Like I said, I would love to have a conversation. I speak about it in bits and pieces in different live streams that we've done in the past, but I would like to have a full on discussion about this particular text. This is any creation story of any culture is like paramount for people to take in if they're going to study the culture, because that's the beginning. That's the point of having a cosmology, cosmogony, and things. It's the beginning. Cosmology, the study of order, and cosmogony, which is the generation of order, how order is even generated, and so on. And so that's today. It's a way of us calling it today ontology. Ontology is the study of existence, or the organization of existence, how things are categorized. And then taxonomy is the hierarchical relationships of different things on different levels. So you have this X and Y axis just with those two alone. And I always tell people to study ontology and taxonomy, just become familiar with it, those concepts. And so this is very, very important for people to know, especially with ancient Kemet and all the various different deities, Netcheru and so on and so forth. But let me just summarize a bit more about this particular text. So this text goes on. So it starts off, it puts these words in the deity's mouth, by the name of Nebuchadnezzar, who is the Lord of the limit, Lord in respects to the limit. And they translate that in a summary way as the supreme being. And that alone we could talk about for a good amount of time. But it goes on where this deity comes into existence, and therefore existence itself comes into existence. And then all things that exist comes into existence after him. And it comes forth from this deity's mouth, which is a whole nother thing that we could talk about. Now, when this happens, the story goes on to say that heaven or the sky and Ta, land, did not exist or was not manifested. Okay. Nor what was made or created, the word command, which is to create, to make. Nothing else was created on the earth, or even large or small things was created. So it's basically painting a picture that the deity come into existence, and then bloop, it's just blank. Everything is blank. It's alone or whatever. And so it goes on to say that all these things came up or was risen up or was brought up out of Nu or Nun, as people know, Nun. And so it talks about Nun being in a state, because the word Nun, the deity Nun, the name Nun comes from ultimately from a word Nini, which means to be inert, completely still, no activity, no motion, no action, no energy, no nothing. That's why they say, the watery abyss is chaos, it's nothingness, it's a void. They call it a void, and so on and so forth. So these things were brought up out of that state. But then it goes on. So the deity is still talking, and the deity says that at that moment, I did not find a place where I could stand. So he couldn't stand anywhere because there was no place to stand. So he worked some magic, for lack of a better word, whatever the case is, how they like to put it, work some magic from his mind. People translated the ib or ib as heart, ibi, my heart, whatever, but it's really my mind, the mind. Ib is the mind. And this deity laid a foundation in relationships. This is how things come into existence. Everything that exists because it's related to something else. Nothing in existence exists for its own sake, in and of itself. Everything is related to every other thing. And these relationships of all things forms a web of interconnectedness and interrelationships that we call law. And so this deity goes on to say, I laid a foundation in law. And the words used there is ma'at. Okay. And then he goes on to say he made every attribute of those things. Because remember, entities coming into existence, they have attributes we call adjectives. And adjectives are permanent states. Okay, think about that. I mean, like I said, I don't have time to kind of go all long into each and every point. I'm just trying to give a little summary walkthrough. So then the deity lays this foundation in law and then makes every attribute. Okay, then there's awareness going on. So the deity was alone. So he goes on to say, I was alone. So he was alone. And this is before he coughed out Shu and sneezed out Tefnut. This is before. So there's nobody in existence. This is before those two were brought forth, and nobody else. Okay. So at some point he actually brings them, obviously brings them forth, and then brings forth a multitude of different things that come into being. All right. And so just to kind of fast forward through um he explains that none of this stuff existed, and then he proceeds to go on and explain how they come into existence. And so this is where you get this concept that a lot of the so-called Hebrew Israelites, when they try to debate against Kemet and stuff like that, this is where you get them trying to bring up masturbation and some sexual deviances from, because in this story and in many creation stories, there's going to be a point of masturbation or something going on. But it's a very logical reason why. If a deity is by themselves and must produce or reproduce without a second person, they have to do it with themselves. And so today we refer to that as self-generative or masturbation. And so in this particular story, the deity says that he has union with his hand, the feminine, his hand, and then ushered out or issued out Shu and Tefnut. All right. And they came forth. And then it goes on and on. But so I'm going to fast forward the story because it ends up getting to a point where these different things get come into being. So you have Shu, Tefnut, and then you have Geb, Nut, and then you have the five. You have Usir, Aset, Satuk, Nebet Hut, and so on. All right. And eventually, human beings are created. And human beings are created, and they're coming from the tears of this same deity, the same God. All right. And it's all and so the deity cries because one of his eyes leaves and doesn't come back. All right. Now that sounds crazy, mythological, and the whole nine. Yes, it does. But there's, rhyme or reason to all of these things. It's not to be taken literally. So don't think that this is literal or to be taken literally, or the intent of the writers was that this stuff was literal. If you think that, then you've been watching too many sci-fi shows and movies and stuff like that, and you're trying to project that back. But it goes on to talk about the creation of human beings. So after Shu Tefnut, you have Geb, Nut, Osir, Horus, Kenti, and Ma'ati. It's a part of five. I kind of mentioned that one. Satuk, Aset, Nebet Hut. All right, so you have all of those people. I mean, all of those different deities. But where it gets down to the humans, I'm just gonna give you just the key words. So mind you that this deity cries and weeps, and then out of the weeping comes forth mankind or Remage. And so there's a deity named Rim. And the word Rim, I said, it means to tear up or to cry. Like as a noun, it means tears. As a verb, it is to cry, to tear up. All right. And so this deity, so they deified this deity or this act. All right. And so from the eye of this deity, Keper came into being the Remage. And so I always tell people this, that the very word Remage for the ancient Egyptians, it means people, but that's their cosmogonical association, because the Remage literally, or the word, it says not literal act, but the word would mean that they are the emanations of Ra. Okay, so the ancient Egyptians viewed themselves as the emanations of Ra. But we say it in the form of tears. From the tears of Ra came the people or Remage. From Remi or the deity Remi, which means to tear, to cry up, came the Remage. Remi, Remage. All right, they're all lined up that way. All right, so anyway, I just wanted to kind of share that, but I already hear myself getting long-winded. Can't be too long-winded tonight. So I just wanted to share that. And my point for sharing this tonight is just to elaborate from the other night. The brother had brought up the kings, and based on his logic, we have to take that king's list literal. Well, if that's the case, then we got to take this story literal, where you have a deity just popping up out of nowhere, alone. Then he's sneezing somebody, coughing somebody into existence, masturbating some other folks into existence and stuff. Are we supposed to take that stuff literally? No. That's crazy and insane if you do. But I can respect it because everybody has a right to believe what they believe. But anyway, somebody else has something to say.
I got some questions actually. One is I noted a characteristic here that the first creations of these Nebejer has moisture as his nature. The first one shoot Nut in the Netteru itself themselves, and then the Hemech, which are the weeping, which is to a moisture, but are moisture in different nature. We have some. Do you know any reasons for it by the Egyptians?
I'm just showing this on the screen. I don't know if y'all can see this still, real quick.
Yeah, I do.
Okay, so this is a shirt that we had designed years ago, and by the way, it's a little shameless plug though. Hiccup Pearls is definitely about to reintroduce itself to everybody. So if y'all are familiar with all these different designs from years ago, all that stuff is gonna come back out and more. All right, so I'm just kind of put the word out there. But
indeed, I'm sorry, but I was going to actually ask you about that. I'm glad you spoke on it. Thanks.
okay, yeah, and so this particular shirt was designed with this conversation in mind. The Remage are the emanations of Ra. And so you see the eye and then these lines, the emanations that which come forth from Ra and things. And the word Remage in the glyphs here. This is the word Remage. All right. And
I
so
already got that one, buddy.
so Heka Apparel, thinkware. So a lot of designs that we did, it causes you to think. So that's why we call it thinkware. It's wearables that make you think and cause other people to think and stuff. And so it's a lot of things that are conversation pieces. But anyway, I just wanted to show you all that how this was designed with that in mind and everything. But so you were saying, I'm sorry, you were asking a question.
Me?
No,
Oh, okay.
Duarte.
Oh yeah, yeah. It was me about the because the human beings and the Neteru was creations of or emanations of the Nebjer, and they have as is basic the basic characteristics of them is it's that they are moisture. One is the sniff or the orgasm of the first being, or in the case of the human beings, the tears of him. So I mean, but why they're not of the same nature of the other beings, the first beings? And I'm asking this because for sure they have an explanation in the text, but I could not grab it.
Well, here's the thing. The remember the what they call the wabu, which is a word for greenery, vegetation, and the kefi, or sorry, not kefi, but hafi, which are things that creep around. So it's talking about the insects and the plant life. So plant life in general, like the plant kingdom, and then the animal kingdom, that which moves around, all came from tears as well. So it came from a deity in the deity form of Rim. And then um later on, the eyes cried, the story goes on that the eyes cried, and then came into being Kepa Remech. So came into being mankind and everything. So, but all of these things actually came from tears, though. Now, unlike the different deities, though, Nebuchadnezzar coughs and then shu comes out, because the word shu means dryness, it's air. And so you cough air, but moisture as tefnut is tif, which is sneezing, or that moisture, because when you sneeze, you have moisture come out, you cough is air. So we have this air, this blast of air, and then a sneeze that produces shu and tefnut, and so on. So that's a little different in terms of not coming from tears or something watery or whatever the case is. But it mentions it came out of the water in the form of nu, even shu and tefnut.
You're right. Yeah.
So a lot of things come out of water. Now here's the issue. Okay. Water in that sense is not literal either, because in many cultures around the world, water is used by whatever the word water is in their language. So obviously, mu and nu are in Rani Kemet, both words used for water, but in other languages for other cultures. But nevertheless, water is always associated in this creation process. The reason being is the behavior of water, the behavior of literal water, real water. Water takes the shape of whatever it's contained in. So it's very what do you call it, pliable or flexible. It will take whatever shape that it's held in. And so water is the perfect analogy of a substance that can take form, and it could take any form. And so they always refer to an anchor into water being, part of this creation process. And then when you mix water with a more durable substance, such as dirt, you get clay. And so a lot of times clay is also used in this creation talk. So this is where the deity Khnum comes into play, fashioning people and fashioning things on the potter's wheel and all that stuff from clay. So you have water and you have clay that are there. Even in the Bible, the god or the deity or one of the deities of the Bible forms man from dirt, from dust of the ground, and molds this thing out of dirt and called him dirt. The word Adam means dirt. The word Adam is dirt. So he molded him from the dirt, called him dirt. So that was kind of crazy. So anyway, but I'm just saying that, so this moisture thing is part of this formula, this recipe that a lot of cultures use, is there. So tears express, see, one of the reasons why tears is brought into this story part of it, and man comes out of that, is because man is evidently a replacement for something. So, because the deity weeps for the loss of an eye. He lost his eye. and so man kind of replaces this loss, this love for the I, and this mourning, or this, this grievance for an I, and is replaced with man, or people, mankind, humankind, whatever. So it's just real interesting. I mean, like I said, it's this whole story. I'm skipping a lot, and I'm just trying to give a gist summary of it, of the story, the storyline. But it's
On
definitely,
that note,
yeah.
excuse me, where can somebody like myself access that? The pet,
Um,
pet,
if you
just to
okay,
practice on it.
yeah. Well, it's some titles, some people title it different, but if you Google it, you could find it in it's usually not found by itself. Like this particular text is rarely, I don't even think I have it by itself, because it's usually a part of a collection. And so you'll see it in a journal among other texts, in one journal, whatever the case is. But if you Google the name, so the name is The Book of Knowing the Transformations of Ra and Overthrowing a Pep. And then some people translate it as The Falling of a Pep. So either one of those, if you Google that, you're gonna come across it. And but like I said, it's gonna be within a bigger journal and stuff. So you get your hands on it.
Okay, thanks. Because I kind of got informed today, like when you're learning the Sesh, sometimes it's easy to, and I noticed that you do this too. You always, when you're going through the Netcher, you always have an actual text, an actual scene. And some people are saying that it's easier to learn when you deal with that rather than having a typeset.
Yeah,
You know what I'm
yeah,
saying?
yeah. It's good. That's definitely helpful for sure. And that's how, I've always been that way. Get the primary if you can. Get the primary if you can, for sure. Get the primary if you can. Primary
Okay.
source. Yep. That's why
Uh,
this particular book, I showed the primary. This is the primary. I'm gonna show it again. I put it up here. Um, this is only one sheet of it, but this is it right here. All right. And so now I did a full study on this, a full transcription. This is the thing. This entire book, I have transcribed it and translated it. And I didn't do it alone though. It was a couple of other people. This was years ago. An elder out of the West Coast named the elder brother Raymond Davis, another colleague of mine, brother Sanjetti, Asar Imhotep, another brother named Math Montu, and we were part of a research team called the ACRU, the Ancient Kemetic Research Unit. We called ourselves the ACRU. This is before, man, this was like 2014.
I think Montu rocks with Dr. Raketti Amen too. I think because I seen that name. It's fresh today, so I seen it. I think he rocks with Dr. Raketti Amen, and do out to her and all that good stuff.
Yeah, well, there's quite a few brothers named Montu, so I don't. It may not be the same one or whatever, but it could be. But yeah, so we did an actual study on this text and took our time and and did away with all the other books and stuff. We did it ourselves. We want to see what we came up with and everything, and it's very interesting. So this is something that I've been dealing with for quite a while. And it is definitely not what people think it is. Like people think it's a spooky creation story, just like the Bible. The Bible is not taken literally. That 7 day stuff, like the questions people ask, God doing this, the snake talking and stuff like that, woman coming from a rib. Man, anybody believes that literally is just a special person. That's not the style. That's not how things are written or anything. In those times and stuff. you know like today, in hip hop, there are certain styles of hip hop lyrics, the way people write their lyrics, and how they what do you call it, parse their lyrics, how they section off their lyrics and stuff. That's like a style now. And then within that major style, you have a variety of styles within a style, right? But that's for today's time. People didn't write like that all the time, but we understand it because we're living in the time. And so there's a certain, and even books, like you go back to the 1800s, 1700s, and you look at books, the style and the way that they were written and things, the vernacular, the nomenclature, and just the style of writing is different. And you can actually date, if you're a person who's a philologist or wherever you study text, you study writing for the sake of style, you can recognize a text. You can see a text and you can date it based on its style. You can put a ballpark date around a text simply because of the way it was written. Not the mechanical way it was written, but the wording, like, the style of it.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? So anyway, I'm saying that to say that that this text here and a lot of ancient texts were written in a certain style that we have completely just ignored, and people spook this stuff out and should never do that.
I did have one question.
Okay, yeah, yep.
So did and if it doesn't have something to do with the topic or whatever, then it's whatever. But did Sheikh Anta Diop want to restore the Medu Netcher as a primary language?
You mean primary language as like a revive it, bring it back to life, you mean?
Exactly.
Well, I know that that's an aspiration of a lot of scholars, but Diop was like multidisciplinary. He's a multidisciplinary scholar, and he had enough on his plate to try to lay the foundation for this cultural unity, to identify the unifying elements of various cultures on the continent of Africa. That was like his main thrust of his work. And now to drill down specifics in the language, I would say that would be championed more so by Dr. Riketi Amen and not necessarily Diop. Dr. Riketi Amen is definitely the one who is championing behind reviving Rodney Kemet as a spoken language to create speech communities of that language. And how I know that is, one, because she's my formal teacher, and she told me that, and I was on, and she invited me among other scholars and stuff to be a part of that process. But the outward knowledge of this is the fact that she wrote books called Majat Wafa, which is a book of the common terms we use today in English. She introduced the Egyptian equivalents so that people can start to get used to it. So that's her one of her aspirations and one of her goals.
She calls it a conversation piece, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yep. That's the book. And so I really wouldn't put that on Diop per se, but I know with Diop and Obenga, both of them, they had a lot on their plate. So they weren't drilling down in language like that at all. They didn't give lessons on the language or anything. Dr. Riketi Amen is the one that stepped up to that plate. And then, and I take clues from that for sure, because I'm 100% into that.
So then I got like one more. Like, so what would it take for you to get, is it possible for you to get her like on like, one of your lives, and y'all just have you ever thought about doing that?
I would love to, but I've dealt with Dr. Riketi Amen, and when I even took her classes, Um, it was a long time ago before she was online. We were on the phone. We were having classes over the phone, and she was the personal instructor of my oldest daughter. She gave private lessons to my daughter and stuff. And just in me knowing Dr. Raketa Amin and stuff like that, and what she has going on, and the climate that we see online, I know she doesn't do those kinds of things.
Okay.
You know, she just doesn't do those kinds of things.
Respect. I
Often.
get it.
Yeah. She doesn't do those kind of things often. But I mean, you know, I would love to, but it would have to be for me, even for me to ask or to set something like that up, it would have to be definitely build up and worthwhile. I wouldn't want to just ask just for the sake of asking, and, you know, having. Now it had to be something like planned out, like outlined, like a something with a that you could put a period on, you know.
You know?
Yeah, not some kind of, you know, just ask questions or open and stuff. Nah, it had to be some kind of presentation or something breakthrough, whatever. You know, that's just me. That's
Yeah.
just me.
A
Because,
good
you know,
idea,
'cause
though.
Dr. Raketa Min, I mean, you know, none of us are getting any younger. Dr. Raketa Min, you know, she's an elder. You know, she's an
That's what
elder.
I'm saying.
You know, she's an elder. You know, she's an elder. She wants to see other people picking this stuff up, so that she could be
No,
she could smile and know that all this work, whatever, is going to be continued and is continuing while
exactly.
she's observing it and the whole nine. Like, you know,
Exactly.
yeah,
And let me say this and I'll stop. Because it just would be nice to hear her speak. Like, you know, I'd probably give anything just to hear Dr. Ben speak. And I don't want to say that, you know what I'm saying, about, you know what I'm saying, someone as esteemed as her. You know what I'm saying? So I
yeah.
think that's a good
Well, well, I mean, that's a good idea and stuff like that. If trust me, I'm telling you, if the opportunity presents itself, and I think that it's the good thing to do, I'm definitely on it. Definitely for that, you know, definitely. Um, yeah, you know, so if that ever comes up, that's cool.
It will
Definitely,
be a dream coming true.
that would be definitely be straight. Yeah, definitely. And, you know, but like I said, I want, because you know, I don't like to do the ordinary, boy. I'm trying to look for progress. I push the envelopes, and so for me
there
to do
you go.
that, yeah, I gotta publish this book, this grammar book, and maybe right around then, right around that time, or shortly after that may be something to come into fruition. Yep, because she's aware of me doing the book and all that good stuff. Um, and, you know, all that. Yep. So I got to get that done.
It will be a great work for us, because speaking for myself, for example, it is a walking uphill to study the ancient Egyptian language by the Western lens. It's kind of harsh to study by that lens. So
Yeah.
approach the culture by someone who is familiar with African way of of living, African way of deal with life. It would be a lot not easier, but it will be much better.
Yeah. I see somebody say, give her flowers, give her a flower show. That's absolutely right. And that's what we have to do, you know. And I'm gonna tell you, the Temple of Anu, the brother Sanjeti, and the members of the Temple of Anu, they celebrated Dr. Raketi Amen recently. I think 2 years ago. It was definitely before the pandemic. It may have been 3 years ago. So, you know, I'm not quite sure, but it was fairly recently, and they honored her, you know, and gave her acknowledgments and acknowledged her work and everything. So, you know, if you all want to kind of see clips of that or whatever, just seek that out. The brother Sanjeti and the Temple of Anu, they celebrated her and things like that. So yeah, so you know, she deserves it. And you know, the so-called black, what was it? The Black something awards. The I know Sonetta TV awards that they had, you know, stuff like that. I was nominated and I won an award there. And I wasn't able to attend and everything. And I told whoever was there on my behalf to that if I should win the award, that to dedicate it to Dr. Raked Amin. Like I don't
Yeah.
need any of that spotlight
Who took
whatsoever.
it for you? Wasn't it Sanjeti? If I remember correctly,
Yes,
somebody took.
two,
What, right?
two.
Yeah, somebody, yeah, and all I was asking was for make sure that they dedicated to Dr. Raked Amin. That was it, because you know
I
she's
recall that.
she's the living, she is the living patriarch or matriarch, sorry, of this language learning right now. You know what I'm saying? So I don't need that. You know what I'm saying? She deserves that. So it doesn't, to me it doesn't matter. So that's why I dedicate that. And I don't even know where the award is. I never saw it. Shoot, it never reached me at all.
What?
It never whoever got the award, I hope she got it, I guess. Because I've never seen it. I just know I won, and that was it. So, and I just made sure I told the brother Unc, I told Sanjeti, I told Dr. Ma'at, whoever was gonna be there, I said, listen, if I win or whatever case is, make sure y'all shout out and dedicate it to Dr. Raked Amin. Just tell everybody, I said thanks, but it's for her. And that was it. So yeah. But yeah, I'm not gonna stay on here too long. So I got 8 more minutes, you all. So I just wanted to kind of go live, you know, keep this up regular and consistent. But you had something else?
Can I do something with the 8 minutes?
Yeah, I mean,
Okay, before you finish it off, well, I was gonna ask Dr. Duarte.
Yeah,
Yes, so you've been studying the language, right?
yes, I do.
Okay, is it like formally or like on your own?
No, it's on my own. I don't. We here in Brazil don't have any place to do it. Just in the the group of Egyptology, and right here it is still a group that it is still a place where not everybody can go. I mean, you know that, and it's something that I'm I'm starving to, and starting to research in the internet and found some books, and I'm striving alone.
Okay.
well, listen,
Okay, go ahead.
hook him up,
Yeah, so because I've because listening to you through the different sessions, I know like you've been studying and actually pretty much studying correctly, but just because and you talked about having that kind of community like around you where people have the same interest of that language. So I was just saying that because we do have classes. Actually, most of the time people don't know that throughout the week we do spend time in classes. And Sebaytdome offers like the beginners class, and then there's also an ongoing grammar class, which I definitely think that you will really love. Even though he hasn't put the book out, but we do use parts of it for the classes. So I just wanted to make you aware of that so that you can get going with it as well, because I've seen your interest in the language and your way of doing things the correct way.
Yeah, I would love it. I would love to do it, man. It's a dream coming true. I literally dreaming about being a scribe. I'm dreaming in in a place like that. So I appreciate the invite, and definitely wanted to be a part of.
Right, and because it's online, and so you can do it anywhere. I mean, for the most part, I was doing it when I was in Denmark, a different time frame, and there were students. We still have actually students, actually some students from Denmark as well, from Kenya, from South Africa, from just about Uganda, Tanzania. So location really doesn't matter, but you just keep a tight community, and we help each other a lot. So I think we need people like you, and I know you need people like us. So I just want to make you aware so that you can get this going.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's
I
do it.
wanted I
Do
wanted
it.
to ask you about how long you've been studying, or what what have you been reading so far?
Yeah, I've been studying now. I think it's quite a year. I Before that I was reading just the translations, the English and Portuguese translations, and it's quite a year ago I found some text on the Netcher itself, and started to do it, write every day, the basic science, and I'm striving to get in the grammar.
Okay, that's great. So on the if you on all of our videos, we always put some of the information. So we have the place, we have the links to place where we learn, which is sebayuniversity.com. And then we have our what we call the headquarters, which is where we put all the information, the resources, translations, books, whatever. That's seshmedunetcher.com. But they're all in the on the information part below the video if you click on it. So there's ongoing classes, and it's always at your own time, and this is for anybody as well that is listening. So yeah, just trying to hook you up so you get going, because you're on the right track.
Appreciate. I definitely want to be a part of it. It's a dream for me.
Okay, that's excellent.
Cool, cool.
And real quick, are you on Facebook?
Yeah, I do. I'm for let me log in. Walter Duarte too.
Okay, so listen, if you're on Facebook, inbox me or send me a friend request or whatever, because we have a I created a Facebook inbox messenger box, so that people that are interested, we kind of keep in touch and give the 411 on what's going on and stuff like that. So do that, and I'll make sure I cue you in. And this goes for anybody who's listening on the chat as well. If you're on Facebook, just inbox me on Facebook. My name is the same, Wujao. I'm pretty much the only person on the planet with this name. I think somebody popped up and had a similar name. I was like, oh shucks, somebody trying to copy. But no, just look for me on Facebook and inbox me, and I'll make sure that we can link up and link everybody up, because my whole thing is the more people who take this approach of the culture by way of the language. And even Dr. Theophilo Benga said this. He said that the only way we can actually, and I'm paraphrasing, the only way we can actually do anything basically with Kemet is to master the language. And I give his full quote in the beginner's book, and I quote it all. I have slides with his quote on there, but that's what he's saying. And everybody who knows something knows that that's true. That's the only way. You cannot get around that. And anybody who tries to get around it intentionally and thinks that that's okay, that's dangerous. But obviously, everybody can't study as intensely as everybody else, so that, it's a given, which is cool. But the thing is, in scholarship and in research and stuff, it takes discipline and good character and humbleness and honesty. And when you know your own weaknesses, you got to own up to it and adapt. So like, if a person doesn't have time to learn something in depth or whatever, then they really have no business trying to debate or argue and this and that. So just the fact that people don't have time to study, cool. Okay, you don't have time to study. But if you don't have time to study something, then you certainly don't have time to debate and argue either. And you shouldn't want to. But, unfortunately, on these YouTube streets and social media, we have the opposite. People who are the least studied do the most talking and arguing. And, it's just crazy to me. So, our thing is to study the language, to tap into the culture. You have a better way of doing it. And even doing that, like I've been doing this for a good minute. And even doing it, we're still, I would consider, at the beginning stages, even in the bigger picture, because once you learn the language, once you learn the mechanics of the writing system, and you learn how the language works, you learn the grammar, which is the morphology and syntax. So you got all of that under your belt. You could be really good at all of that. But guess what? There's a whole nother monster beast to tackle, which is the ability to understand figurative expressions, to capture the reality behind the figurative things, the symbolisms, the hyperboles, the similes, the allegories, the metaphors and tropes, all of that, because that was the business of their day. Ancient cultures invented that technology for remembrance, to remember their science. Remember, science is two things. Science is a set of tools and methods that are used to know when something's known. So it's tools of what do you call it? Epistemology, where you learn. It's tools to gain knowledge. But then science is also the accumulation of that body of knowledge. And so every culture on the planet gains knowledge by naturally, and they have to contain it and pass it on to the future generations, so that the future generations never have to start over again, because then there's no progress. There's never any progress if that's done. So they had to invent ways to record knowledge and pass it on without writing, without no recording device in the form of a pen, paper, writing. Computers obviously know none of that. So they had to invent a speech within their speech to store information. And that's a fancy or more plain way of saying figurative language. Figurative language today is taken for granted, but back then it was a technology. Just like our jump drives in our computer. Figurative language was the jump drive of ancient times, to be able to tell a story and infused within the story the knowledge of that day. So to talk about, for example, to talk about health and healing and how the body heals, they deified a lioness deity called Sekhmet. And her name means power, Sekhem, or the feminine form of the word Sekhmet. And she becomes the patroness deity of all medical physicians, because her story that's written for her deals with how the immune system works. How she raged, she caused a fever, she got raged and got hot and started killing everybody, and then had to get drunk in order to calm down and get back. That whole story, we can talk about it. That whole story is talking about immune responses. Why is it that she's the deity of medical doctors, and then the story sounds like how the immune system responds to pathogens and things like that? So that information had to be stored. Now, in ancient times, they didn't witness cells and any things in a microscopic level, but they knew something was a causal agent of what they could observe. So anyway, that's the whole thing. But and I'm saying it becomes necessary for us to learn this stuff so that we can start getting the realities behind the figurative speech. The Book of the Dead, people want to talk about it, spook it all out. Oh, the Book of the Dead, the judgment scene, the hall of Ma'at, or the double halls of Ma'ati, and people are judged, the heart getting eaten up by a monster and this and that, confess negatively, and whatever else stuff people make up. So people take that and don't really know what to do with it. Rauniu Puret Himeru, what does that mean? The book of coming forth by light or by day, and Gareh by night, by day and by night. What is the difference between Heru and Gareh versus Su? The word Su means day too. Heru is daylight, literally, the daylight of the day. Gareh is the night part of the day, and Su is the whole day. So why the focus on light? Is that literal? Is it deal with something else? You know, so it's a lot that we have to deal with. But anyway, I definitely need to end. It's late now, so appreciate everybody tuning in. And I didn't get to the chat. So was there any questions in the chat? Was anybody paying attention? Shout out to everybody in the chat. I see, I put the link in there. So I'm sure if anybody wanted to come and share, they could have. Brother Zane, Damo, Brother Damo, Heru Masu Nafir to Brother Jehudi Ma'at. Birthday, I think he's about, what he turned? What did he say? 19? I think he just got out of high school, 19. Congratulations to the brother, man. I think he's got a couple of colleges he's looking into, all that good stuff. Nah, but happy birthday to him. Who else? I'm just scrolling. Dasharab, Hotep, Miss Elias, peace, Hotep. Conscientiously aspiring, Hotep. Yeah, so that's all I see. So everybody on the panel, we got brother Son David in the house. Didn't even know Son David be sneaking up in here, boy.
Wow.
That's right.
Yeah, you know it's something when Son David come around, boys. He's like, oh, let me creep up in there, boy. Must be talking about something good.
Right.
Must be something good. So yeah, we're gonna get it together though, you all. I'm telling you. We can't microwave this. We need to take it serious. And it is what it is. So
yeah, I'm getting ready to prepare myself for one of these Divine Wednesdays.
Yeah, I saw that you're gonna do a presentation. All right, so we look out for it.
Yeah, I gotta put the time in. I'm getting there.
All right, you're gonna present and convince us that the Egyptians were really the Atlanteans and aliens, and they left and they coming back. You about to prove it once and for all. You about to go ahead and give it to us, huh?
I got the X-Files.
You got the actual Mully. What was the name? Scully. Mully, was it Mully or Scully?
Scully and Muller or something, I forgot.
Scully and Muller.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Scully and Muller. I done mixed the two names, Mully. Scully and Muller.
I ain't even heard of it.
You're gonna bring them on the show directly. Okay, I see you. They're gonna be on the panel, boy. You know what I'm saying? And that dude from Ancient Aliens with the wild hair, you gonna have him on there, boy. Okay. You're gonna have that presentation, boy. Y'all watch out for that. All right, but I'm gonna have to say good Nafir, which is good night. And Shem Hotep, which is Shem is as a farewell with peace and satisfaction. And you all know the deal about that. Hotep, why we use it and stuff, where you should. But I'm gonna say peace and see y'all next time. So Friday we'll be back on live. All right, Hotep.
Hotep.
Hotep.